Wuzetian, a complete biography, sleep aid version. Dear listeners, good evening. Now, please adjust to your most comfortable position. Close your eyes, relax all your muscles, and slow down your breathing. Inhale, exhale, inhale again, exhale again. Let each breath take away the fatigue from your body, and let each exhale calm your heart more and more. Today, we are going to tell the life story of Wuzetian, the only Orthodox female emperor in Chinese history. This history is long and gentle, without fierce waves, only the precipitation of years and the flow of fate. We will follow the footprints of historical records, step by step into her world, from her birth to entering the palace, to climbing step by step to the peak of power, and then to her calm ending in her later years. There is no fiction or exaggeration throughout. We only hope that this gentle history will accompany you to slowly drift into a peaceful sleep. First of all, we need to make it clear that Wuzetian's life spanned the Zhenguang reign of the early Tang Dynasty, went through the power transition during Emperor Gaozong's reign, and finally founded her own Shou dynasty, known as Wu-Shou in history, and then returned the world to the Li Tang dynasty. Her life trajectory was closely linked to the rise and fall of the early Tang dynasty. Historical records show that Wuzetian's original name was Wu Shou. The character Zhou was created by herself later, meaning the sun and moon shining in the sky, symbolizing her supreme power. She was born in the 7th year of Wuda in the reign of Emperor Gaozu of Tang, that is 624 AD, and died in the 1st year of Shenlong in the reign of Emperor Zhongzong of Tang, 705 AD, at the age of 82. She was one of the emperors who ascended the throne at the oldest age and lived the longest life in Chinese history. Her birthplace was clearly recorded in historical materials as Wanshui in Binzhou, which is today's Wanshui County, Shaanxi Province. However, her childhood was spent moving around many places because her father was one of the founding heroes of the early Tang Dynasty Wu Shihua. Let's start with Wuzetian's family. Understanding her origin can help us better understand the choices in her life and the foreshadowing of her fate. Wu Zetian's father, Wu Shihua, was originally a timber merchant in Wanshui, Binzhou. At the end of the Sui dynasty, the world was in chaos, and heroes emerged one after another. With his wealth and vision, Wu Shihua got to know Li Yuan, who was raising troops in Taiwan at that time and later became Emperor Gaozu of Tang. He took the initiative to take out his wealth to support Li Yuan's army, becoming an important supporter under Li Yuan's command. After Li Yuan established the Tang dynasty, Wu Shihua was granted the title of Duke Yin because of his merits in founding the dynasty. He successively held positions such as Minister of Works and Dudu of Jinzhou, jumping from a merchant to a senior official of the Tang dynasty and joining the aristocracy. Wu Shihua had two marriages in his life. His first wife was Xiangli Shi, who gave birth to two sons for him, namely Wu Yuanqing and Wu Yuanshuang. Later, Xiangli Shi passed away. With the matchmaking of Emperor Gaozu Li Yuan, Wu Shihua married his second wife, who was also Wu Zetian's mother Yang Shi. Yang Shi was born into a prominent family, the daughter of Yang Da, Prime Minister of the Sui dynasty. She received a good education since childhood, was proficient in literature and history, and devoutly believed in Buddhism. When Yang Shi married Wu Shihua, she was already 42 years old, but she had a good relationship with Wu Shihua and successively gave birth to 3 daughters for him. Wu Zetian was the second daughter. In 624 AD, Wu Zetian was born in Changnan. At that time, the Tang dynasty had just been established. The world was initially stable, and the prelude to the Zhenguang reign had not yet opened. Li Yuan was still the emperor of the Tang dynasty, and Wu Shihua was serving as Minister of Works in Changnan. Wu Zetian's birth did not cause much sensation. After all, she was just the daughter of an official. In that era of male superiority, the birth of a woman was often not as valued as that of a man. But no one expected that this seemingly ordinary baby girl would stir up the political situation of the entire Tang dynasty in the future and become the unique female emperor in Chinese history. Wu Zetian's childhood was spent in a relatively superior environment. Her father was a founding hero. Her mother was born into a prominent family, and her family was wealthy. She received a good education since childhood. Yang Shi attached great importance to her daughter's cultivation, teaching her to read and write, study literature and history, and even teach her military strategy and tactics of power. Wu Zetian was intelligent since childhood, with an excellent memory and high understanding. Whether it was reading and writing, or reciting poems and essays, she was much better than her peers. According to the Old Book of Tang, biography of Empress Tian, Wu Zetian was always resourceful and also proficient in literature and history, which was inseparable from her education in childhood. In addition, Wu Zetian's childhood was accompanied by frequent migrations. Because of Wu Shuo's official transfers, their family often needed to move from one place to another. When Wu Zetian was 3 years old, that is, the first year of Shengguan, 627 AD, Emperor Taizong Li Shimin ascended the throne, and Wu Shuo was transferred to Dudu of Lishou, governing Lishou, which is today's Guangyuan area in Sichuan province. So Wu Zetian followed her parents to Lishou and spent 4 years of her childhood there. Lishou was beautiful with green mountains and clear waters, simple folk customs. Wu Zetian spent a carefree childhood there. According to local historical records, when Wu Zetian was in Lishou, she often followed her mother to Buddhist temples to burn incense and worship Buddha, and sometimes even dressed up as a little nun to recite scriptures with monks. This early Buddhist influence had a profound impact on her entire life. Whether it was her vigorous promotion of Buddhism during her reign or her devotion to Buddhism after abdicating in her later years, we can see the shadow of her childhood. During her stay in Lishou, There was a legend about wuzetian recorded in the old book of Tang and wuzetian. Although it was only a legend, it also reflected wuzetian's uniqueness in her childhood from the side. It is said that at that time, there was a famous physiognomist named Yuan Tiangang who passed through this hole and was invited by Wu Shihua to his home to read faces for his family. Yuan Tiangang first read the faces of Wu Shihua's two sons and said that they would be able to hold official positions of the third rank in the future and be wealthy people. Then he read the face of Wuzetian's elder sister and said that she would marry a wealthy family and give birth to wealthy children, but her life would be a little rough. Finally, Yuan Tiangang saw Wuzetian, who was still in her swaddle. At that time, wuzetian was wearing boys' clothes and was held in the arms of her nanny. Yuan Tiangang looked carefully for a while. His face changed greatly, and he quickly said to Wu Shihua, "This child has dragon eyes and phoenix neck, and an extraordinary appearance. He is the most noble among noble people. If it is a girl, she will surely become the ruler of the world in the future." After hearing this, Wu Shihua was both shocked and afraid. He was shocked that his daughter had such a destiny, and afraid that if this sentence spread, it would bring disaster to his family. So he quickly told his family not to leak this matter, and asked the nanny not to dress Wuzetian in boys' clothes again. Although this legend is somewhat legendary and cannot be completely regarded as historical fact, it also shows from one side that Wuzetian showed an extraordinary temperament since childhood. And because of Yuan Tiangang's words, Wu Shihua also paid special attention to this second daughter. Although he did not dare to make it public on the surface, he paid more attention to her cultivation secretly. In the 5th year of Shengguan, 631 AD, Wu Shihua was transferred to Dudu of Jinzhou, governing Jinzhou, which is today's Jinzhou area in Hubei province. So Wuzetian left this hole with her parents and came to Jinzhou. Jinzhou was an important town at that time, with developed economy and prosperous culture. Here, wuzetian came into contact with more people and things and broadened her horizons. She continued to study literature and history with her mother, and at the same time, she began to pay attention to the situation in the court and understand the rules of the officialdom. During her time in Jingzhou, Wu Zetian grew up gradually, from an ignorant child to a graceful young girl. She was not only beautiful in appearance but also talented, able to compose poems and couplets, distinguish right from wrong, and even have her own unique insights into military strategy and power tactics. According to historical records, when Wu Zetian was in Jingzhou, she often followed her father to attend some official banquets. At the banquets, she spoke appropriately, behaved elegantly, and was praised by everyone. However, the happy time did not last long. In the 9th year of Shengguan, 635 AD, Wu Zetian's father, Wu Shihua, passed away in his post as Dudu of Jingzhou at the age of 59. Wu Shihua's death dealt a heavy blow to Wu Zetian's family and completely changed Wu Zetian's fate. Because after Wu Shihua's death, his two sons born to his first wife, Wu Yuanqing and Wu Yuanshuang, began to squeeze out Wu Zetian and her mother Yangshi. Wu Yuanqing and Wu Yuanshuang had always resented Yangshi and Wu Zetian's three sisters, believing that they had seized their mother's position and divided their father's property. Now that their father was dead, they no longer concealed their hostility, made things difficult for Yangshi and her daughters in every way, not only deducted their living expenses but also often sneered at them. Yangshi was born into a prominent family and was proud all her life. She had never suffered such grievances, but as a widow with three daughters, she had no one to rely on and could only swallow her anger. Wu Zetian was only 12 years old at that time. At the age of 12, she already understood the warmth and coldness of human feelings and the harshness of the world. Watching her mother being bullied, watching herself, her elder sister and younger sister living a dependent life, her heart was filled with unwillingness and anger. She secretly vowed that she would work hard to become stronger, that she would get rid of such a difficult situation, that she would let her mother and sisters live a good life, and that she would make those who bullied them pay the price. In this way, wuzetian spent 2 years under the squeeze of Wu Yuanqing and Wu Yunshuang and the humiliation of living under someone else's roof. Although these 2 years were hard, they also tempered her will, made her more tough and forbearing, and made her more deeply realize the importance of power. She knew that in this era of male superiority, if a woman wanted to get rid of the bondage of fate and protect herself and her family, she must have power, enough power to control her own fate and not be bullied by others. In the 11th year of Shengguan, 637 AD, something happened that changed Wu Zetian's life. That year, Emperor Taizong Li Shimin heard that the second daughter of Wu Shihua, Dudu of Jingzhou, was beautiful and talented. So he issued an imperial edict to summon Wu Zetian into the palace, conferring her the title of fifth rank Karen and giving her the courtesy name Wu Mei. From then on, people called Wu Zetian Wu Meiyang. For the 12-year-old Wu Zetian, entering the palace was both an opportunity and a challenge. The opportunity was that she could finally get rid of the squeeze of Wu Yuanqing and Wu Yuanshuang, get rid of the dependent life, enter the center of the highest power in the palace, have the opportunity to contact the emperor, have the opportunity to gain power, and realize her dream. The challenge was that in the palace, the hierarchy was strict. There were constant intrigues, and it was full of crises. A fifth rank Karen without background or reliance would have great difficulty in establishing herself in the palace and gaining the emperor's favor. When young Shi learned that her daughter was summoned into the palace, she was heartbroken. She knew that the palace was a place that ate people without spitting out bones. Her daughter was still young, and entering the palace would probably suffer endless hardships and might even never come out again. She held Wu Zetian, cried bitterly, persuaded her not to enter the palace, and wanted to intercede for her to let the emperor revoke the imperial edict. But wuzetian was extremely calm. She looked at her mother, wiped the tears from her mother's face, and said firmly, "Mother, there is no need to be sad. Entering the palace to serve the Son of Heaven may not be a bad thing. Why cry and act like a child?" This sentence, from the mouth of a 12-year-old girl, was enough to show her uniqueness, her ambition and courage. In her opinion, entering the palace was her only chance to get rid of difficulties and pursue power, and she would never give up easily. In this way, in the late autumn of the 11th year of Shengguan, wuzetian bid farewell to her mother and sisters, followed the palace messengers, and embarked on the road to the imperial palace in Chang'an. That year, she was 12 years old. With her dreams and ambitions, she walked into that magnificent yet dangerous imperial palace and began her 58-year palace career. The imperial palace in Chang'an was magnificent, with magnificent palaces and pavilions, countless maids and eunuchs, endless glory and wealth, and endless intrigues. After wuzetian entered the palace, she was arranged in the Yeting Palace as a fifth-rank crown. In the hierarchy of the harem in the Tang Dynasty, harem was a middle to lower rank. Above her were the empress, noble consort, shu consort, the consort, xian consort, jiu, jiu, Miriam, and many other ranks, while below her were Boeing, Yunu, Kini, and other lower-ranked concubines. According to the old Book of Tang, the duty of a harem was mainly to record the banquets, slave and silk production of the concubines, tell the emperor about their gains in the year, and at the same time serve the emperor's side, compose poems and couplets to add luster during the emperor's banquets. After entering the palace, although wuzetian was beautiful and talented, she did not immediately gain the favor of Emperor Taizong Lishimen, because at that time Emperor Taizong was about 40 years old. He preferred gentle, virtuous, and dignified women. Although wuzetian was intelligent, her personality was too strong and tough, which was quite different from the ideal concubine image in Emperor Taizong's heart. In the harem, without the emperor's favor, it meant no status, no power, only obscurity, and even being bullied by others. This was the situation wuzetian faced after entering the palace. She got up on time every day, served on time, completed her duties without the slightest neglect. But Emperor Taizong rarely summoned her, and even rarely remembered her existence. Sometimes she did not see Emperor Taizong for months. But Wu Zetian was not discouraged or depressed because of this. She knew that in the harem, impatience was useless. Only forbearance, waiting, and constant self-improvement could seize the opportunity to gain the emperor's attention and favor. So in the days when she was not summoned by the emperor, she did not idle around. She used all her time to study literature and history, learn military strategy, figure out the tactics of power, and at the same time secretly observe the situation in the harem, understand the personalities and backgrounds of the concubines, and the emperor's preferences and habits. She knew that Emperor Taizong Shimin was a great emperor who pacified the world, founded the Zhenguang reign, was wise and powerful and knowledgeable. To gain his favor, relying only on appearance was far from enough. She must also have talent, insight, and something that could move him. So Wu Zetian studied harder, not only becoming proficient in poems and essays, but also having a deeper understanding and cognition of military strategy, history, and power. In the few years after Wu Zetian entered the palace, something made her attract Emperor Taizong's attention for the first time. This incident, recorded in Zizi Tongjian, is a very famous historical material and a true portrayal of Wu Zetian's personality. It is said that at that time, the western regions paid tribute to a very valuable horse to the Tang dynasty, named Shizikang. This horse was tall, with bright fur and extremely fast speed, but it had a very fiery and untamable temperament. No matter what methods the palace horse trainers used, they could not tame it. even several horse trainers were beaten and kicked by it. One day, Emperor Taizong Shimin took the palace concubines to the imperial garden to watch this Shizukan. Looking at this untamable horse, he felt both fond and helpless. So he said to the concubines around him, "This horse is really a rare good horse, but its temperament is too fiery, and no one can tame it." The concubines around him all shook their heads and did not dare to speak. After all, they were all weak women. How could they know the way of taming horses, let alone dare to try to tame such a fierce horse? At this moment, wuzetian stood up and said calmly to Emperor Taizong, "Your Majesty, your servant can tame this Shizukan." Emperor Taizong was very surprised after hearing this. He looked at the young Karam in front of him and said with a smile, "Oh, how can you, a weak woman, tame this fierce horse? Tell me, what method do you have?" Wuzetian replied calmly and unhurriedly, "Your Majesty, to tame this horse, your servant needs 3 things. First, an iron whip. Second, an iron mace. Third, a dagger. If you beat it with an iron whip and it does not submit, you will hit its head with an iron mace. If it still does not submit, you will cut its throat with a dagger. Since it cannot be used by your Majesty, there is no use keeping it." After hearing this, Emperor Taizong was silent for a moment, then laughed loudly. He did not expect that this seemingly weak Charon would have such a fiery and ruthless personality. Although he did not let wuzetian tame the Shizukan, he also looked at wuzetian with new eyes and remembered this unique woman. However, although Emperor Taizong remembered wuzetian, he did not favor her because of this, because he felt that wuzetian's personality was too fiery and ruthless, not suitable to be his concubine, let alone stay by his side. After this incident, wuzetian still did not gain Emperor Taizong's favor. She still lived an obscure life in the Yeting Palace. But she did not give up because of this. She still endured, waited, and improved herself. She knew that the opportunity would always come. As long as she was prepared, she would surely seize it and soar to the sky once the opportunity came. In Emperor Taizong's harem, the most favored were Empress Song and noble consort Su. Empress Song was Emperor Taizong's first wife, born into a prominent family, gentle, virtuous, and dignified. She was not only deeply favored by Emperor Taizong, but also very wise. She often remonstrated with Emperor Taizong and helped him govern the state affairs, being called a virtuous internal helper by Emperor Taizong. Unfortunately, Empress Song passed away in the 10th year of Shengguan, the year before wuzetian entered the palace, at the age of 36. After Empress Zhongsun's death, Emperor Taizong was very sad and did not establish another empress for a long time. After Empress Zhongsun's death, the most favored by Emperor Taizong was noble consort Su. Noble consort Su, whose name was Su Hui, was born into a scholarly family, talented, gentle, and virtuous, forming a sharp contrast with Wu Zetian's personality. Su Hui was very good at composing poems and couplets. Her poems and essays were elegant and refined with profound artistic conception, which were deeply loved by Emperor Taizong. Emperor Taizong often summoned her to compose poems and couplets with her, discuss literature and history, and even sometimes discuss state affairs with her. Su Hui was not only deeply favored by Emperor Taizong, but also very insightful. She once remonstrated with Emperor Taizong many times not to engage in large-scale construction projects, not to overwork the people and waste money and grain, but to be diligent in state affairs and comfort the people. Emperor Taizong adopted all her suggestions. Watching noble consort Su being deeply favored, Wu Zetian felt a little envious but not jealous. She knew that Su Hui's gentleness, virtue, and talent were what she did not have, and her own fiery and strong character was also what Su Hui did not have. She understood that everyone had their own strengths and weaknesses. To establish herself in the harem and gain the emperor's favor, she must give play to her own strengths and find her own position. So wuzetian paid more attention to cultivating her uniqueness. She no longer deliberately imitated Su Hui's gentleness and virtue, but continued to maintain her own fiery and strong character. At the same time, she studied literature and history harder, learned the tactics of power, and improved her insight and ability. She knew that although Emperor Taizong did not like her character, he appreciated talented and insightful people. As long as she was excellent enough, she would surely gain his recognition and attention one day. Days in the palace passed day by day, and Wu Zetian grew up day by day. She grew from a 12-year-old girl to a 16 or 17-year-old blooming girl, becoming more and more beautiful, more and more talented, and her character became more and more mature and forbearing. In the palace, she acted cautiously, handled the relationship with the concubines, maids, and eunuchs carefully, neither deliberately currying favor nor offending anyone, silently accumulating her strength and waiting for the opportunity to come. In the 17th year of Shengguan, 643 AD, Emperor Taizong Li Shimin deposed Crown Prince Li Chengqian and made his ninth son Li Xi the Crown Prince. Li Xi was the son of Emperor Taizong and Empress Song, born in the second year of Shengguan, 628 AD, 4 years younger than Wu Zetian. Li Xi had a gentle and kind personality, not as great as Emperor Taizong, but he was also very intelligent and deeply loved by Emperor Taizong. After Li Xi was made crown prince, according to the regulations of the Tang Dynasty, he needed to enter the palace frequently to serve Emperor Taizong's daily life, accompany Emperor Taizong to handle state affairs, and learn the way of governing the country. It was at this time that Li Xi saw Wu Zetian for the first time. At that time, Wu Zetian was already 19 years old, in her prime of youth and beauty, while Li Xi was only 15 years old, still an ignorant teenager. When Li Xi saw Wu Zetian for the first time, he was attracted by her appearance and temperament. Wu Zetian was beautiful, slim, elegant in manner, appropriate in speech, and the unique fiery temperament on her was completely different from other gentle and virtuous concubines in the palace, deeply attracting the young Li Ji. And Wu Zetian also noticed this young crown prince. She knew that the crown prince was the future emperor and the heir to the throne. Getting along well with the crown prince would be of great benefit to her future. So Wu Zetian began to approach Li Shi intentionally or unintentionally. She used her talent and insight to show her uniqueness in front of Li Shi. She would accompany Li Shi to study, explain literary and historical knowledge to him, analyze the court situation for him, and even give him advice to help him solve some problems. Li Shi, who already had a good impression of Wu Zetian, plus Wu Zetian's intentional approach and help, soon had a deep affection for Wu Zetian. This affection included both love and dependence. But Wu Zetian was very sober. She knew that she was Emperor Taizong's Karam and Li Qi's stepmother, and there was an insurmountable gap between them. If their relationship was discovered by Emperor Taizong, not only would she lose her life, but Li Shi would also be implicated and might even lose his crown prince position. So Wu Zetian always restrained her feelings and kept a certain distance from Li Shi. Although they had contact secretly, they never dared to be too public. Although Li Shi had a gentle personality, he was also very persistent. He loved Wu Zetian deeply and could not control his feelings. He often took the opportunity of serving Emperor Taizong to secretly visit Wu Zetian and talk with her. Sometimes he would send Wu Zetian some small gifts to express his feelings. Sometimes he would pour out his troubles and confusion to Wu Zetian, seeking her comfort and help. Looking at Li Ji's sincerity and persistence, Wu Zetian was also moved, but she still did not forget her situation and remained sober and forbearing. In this way, Wu Zetian and Li Ji secretly established a deep affection. This affection was hidden and sincere. In the magnificent yet dangerous imperial palace, it became the only comfort in their hearts. But they both knew that this affection was not allowed by the world and was full of dangers. they could only guard this affection carefully and wait for the right time. In the 22nd year of Shengguang, 648 AD, noble consort Su passed away at the age of 24. Noble consort Su's death made Emperor Taizong very sad, and his health became worse and worse. At this time, Emperor Taizong was already 58 years old. Years of hard work, coupled with the grief of losing noble consort Su, made his illness worse and worse, and he gradually took to his bed. After Emperor Taizong took to his bed, Li Shi guarded his bedside day and night, serving his daily life and accompanying him through his last days. And wuzetian, as Emperor Taizong's Karen, also needed to take turns serving at Emperor Taizong's bedside according to regulations. So wuzetian and Li Shi had more opportunities to contact each other. They accompanied and comforted each other at Emperor Taizong's bedside, and their feelings became deeper and deeper. At this time, Emperor Taizong was no longer able to pay attention to things in the harem, nor to the contact between Li Ji and wuzetian. He only hoped that he could recover soon, spend his last days in peace, see Li Ji successfully inherit the throne, and continue the Shengguang reign he founded. Looking at the bedridden Emperor Taizong and Li Ji who guarded the bedside day and night, wuzetian's heart was filled with complex emotions. She knew that Emperor Taizong's days were numbered. Once Emperor Taizong passed away, her fate would change drastically again. According to the regulations of the Tang Dynasty, after the emperor's death, concubines without children needed to become nuns, enter temples, pray for the emperor, and spend the rest of their lives. And wuzetian, who had been in the palace for more than 10 years, had never been favored by Emperor Taizong and had not given birth to any children. Once Emperor Taizong passed away, she had to become a nun, leave the palace where she had struggled for more than 10 years, leave Li Ji whom she loved deeply, enter the cold temple, and spend the rest of her life. Thinking of this, wuzetian's heart was filled with unwillingness and fear. She was unwilling that after struggling for more than 10 years, she still did not gain power and get rid of the bondage of fate. She was unwilling to leave the palace, and Li Shi liked this and spent the rest of her life in obscurity. She was even more unwilling that her dream would turn into nothing. She was afraid of the coldness and loneliness of the temple, and afraid that she would never have the opportunity to return to the palace and realize her ambition and dream. Li Ji also realized this. He knew that once Emperor Taizong passed away, wuzetian would have to become a nun, and he would never see wuzetian again or stay with her. He loved wuzetian deeply and was unwilling to lose her, unwilling to let her enter the cold temple to spend the rest of her life. So he secretly said to wuzetian, "Mei Yang, don't worry. After Father Emperor passes away, I will definitely find a way to take you out of the temple, take you back to the palace, take good care of you, and never let you be wronged again." Looking at Li Ji's sincere eyes and listening to his firm words, wuzetian's heart was filled with gratitude. She knew that Li Shi really loved her and really wanted to help her. But she also knew that this matter was very difficult. Li Ji had just ascended the throne. His foundation was not stable. The situation in the court was very complex. If he wanted to go against the ancestral system, take her out of the temple and take her back to the palace, he would definitely be opposed and criticized by the court ministers, and might even affect his throne. So wuzetian said to Li Ji, "Your Highness, thank you for your kindness. But the ancestral system is hard to violate. I can't affect your Highness's throne and great cause because of myself. Don't worry, I will practice hard in the temple and wait for your Highness's news. No matter how long it takes, I will wait." Although she said this, wuzetian's heart was full of expectation. She expected Li Shi to keep his promise, expected to return to the palace again, and expected to have the opportunity to continue pursuing her power and dream. In the 23rd year of Shengguan, 649 AD, Emperor Taizong Li Shimin passed away in the Cuiwei Palace at the Zhongnan Mountain at the age of 59. Emperor Taizong's death marked the end of the Zhenguang reign and the beginning of a new era. After Emperor Taizong's death, Crown Prince Li Shi ascended the throne, known as Emperor Gozong of Tang. After Emperor Gozong ascended the throne, according to the ancestral system of the Tang dynasty, all concubines of Emperor Taizong who had no children were sent to the Ganya temple in Changnan to become nuns, and wuzetian was among them. In this way, wuzetian left the palace where she had lived for 12 years, left Li Ji whom she loved deeply, entered the cold Ganya temple, became a nun, with the Dharma name Minkang. Ganya temple was located outside Changnan, with a quiet and cold environment. There was no magnificent splendor of the palace, no endless glory and wealth, only green lamps and ancient Buddhas, morning bells and evening drums, and endless loneliness. Wuzetian, from a thief rank Karam to a nun, the great gap in status and the great change in environment made her unable to adapt for a while. In the days at Ganya Temple, wuzetian got up early every day to recite scriptures, clean the temple, serve the Buddhas, and live a boring and monotonous life. She missed Li Shi every day, missed the life in the palace, and missed her dream. She did not know if Li Shi would keep his promise, if she would have the opportunity to return to the palace again, and what hope there was for her future. Sometimes she would sit alone in the courtyard of the temple, looking at Changnan in the distance, crying silently. She thought of her ambition when she entered the palace at the age of 12, her forbearance and waiting in the palace, her sincere feelings with Li Shi, and the grievances and bullying she and her mother suffered after her father's death. She was unwilling to spend the rest of her life in obscurity in the cold temple like this. She was unwilling that her dream would turn into nothing. She was even more unwilling to lose power and everything like this. But wuzetian was not depressed or gave up because of this. She knew that the more difficult the situation, the more she needed to endure, persist, and be prepared. So in the days at Ganya Temple, she still did not give up learning. She used all her time to study literature and history, learn military strategy, figure out the tactics of power, and at the same time constantly reflect on herself, her gains and losses in the past, and her future path. She knew that Li Ji had just ascended the throne. His foundation was not stable, and the situation in the court was very complex. He needed time and opportunities to consolidate his throne and settle the opposing forces in the court. She could not force Li Ji or cause trouble for him. She could only wait patiently for Li Shi to keep his promise and for Li Shi to have enough strength to take her out of Ganya Temple. Days at Ganya Temple passed day by day, and wuzetian became more and more mature and tough. She learned to persist in loneliness, wait in loneliness, and grow in difficulties. She knew that as long as she did not give up and was prepared, once the opportunity came, she would surely seize it, soar to the sky, and realize her dream. After Emperor Gozong Li Shi ascended the throne, he did not forget his promise to Wuzetian. He loved Wuzetian deeply and missed her all the time. But he had just ascended the throne. His foundation was not stable, and most of the power in the court was in the hands of founding heroes such as Zhongsong Wuji and Chu Suiyang. These ministers were all veterans from Emperor Taizong's reign, very conservative. They strictly abided by the ancestral system and firmly opposed Emperor Gozong's violation of the ancestral system to take Wuzetian out of Ganya Temple and take her back to the palace. Zhongsong Wuji was the elder brother of Empress Zhongsong, the uncle of Emperor Gozong, and one of the founding heroes of the Tang Dynasty. He successively held positions such as Right Assistant Grand Secretary and Secom, and was deeply trusted and valued by Emperor Taizong. Before Emperor Taizong passed away, he entrusted Emperor Gozong to Zhongsong Wuji, letting him assist Emperor Gozong in governing the state affairs. Zhongsong Wuji was loyal to the Li Tang dynasty and Emperor Taizong all his life. He attached great importance to the ancestral system and firmly opposed women's interference in politics. He believed that Wuzetian was Emperor Taizong's Taron and Emperor Gozong's stepmother. If Emperor Gozong took Wuzetian back to the palace, it would not only violate the ancestral system, but also corrupt the court rules and affect the rule of the Li Tang dynasty. Chu Suiyang was also a veteran from Emperor Taizong's reign. He successively held positions such as Censor-in-Chief and Secretary of the Secretariat, and was famous for his straightforward remonstrance. He also attached great importance to the ancestral system and firmly opposed Emperor Gozong's taking Wuzetian back to the palace. He believed that Wuzetian was born in a humble family and had a fiery and ruthless personality. Once she returned to the palace, she would definitely interfere in state affairs and bring disaster to the Li Tang dynasty. Faced with the opposition of ministers such as Zhang Songwuji and Chu Suiyang, although Emperor Gozong really wanted to take Wuzetian back to the palace, he was helpless. He knew that he had just ascended the throne and did not have enough strength to compete with these veterans. If he forcibly took Wuzetian back to the palace, it would definitely arouse the dissatisfaction and criticism of the court ministers, and might even affect his throne. So he had to give up temporarily, silently miss Wuzetian, and wait for the right time to find a way to take Wuzetian back to the palace. After Emperor Gozong ascended the throne, he made his crown princess Wang Shi the empress. Empress Wang was born into a prominent family in Qi County, Binxiu. Her grandfather was Wang Xizhen, left Grand Master of the Sui dynasty, and her father was Wang Renyu, magistrate of Luoshan in the Tang dynasty. Empress Wang was gentle, virtuous, and dignified, deeply loved by Emperor Gozong's mother Empress Zhongsang, and also recognized by the court ministers. But Empress Wang had the biggest shortcoming. She did not give birth to any children for Emperor Gozong. In that era where a mother's status was determined by her son, the position of an empress without children was very unstable. In Emperor Gozong's harem, there was another very favored concubine named Consort Shaoshu. Consort Shaoshu was born into the Shao family of Longling, a descendant of the royal family of the Southern Liang dynasty. She was beautiful, talented, and very good at catering to Emperor Gozong's preferences. Consort Shaoshu gave birth to a son and a daughter for Emperor Gozong. Her son was named Sujia, and her daughter was named Princess Anding. Because she gave birth to children, Consort Shaoshu was even more favored by Emperor Gozong. She also became more and more arrogant and domineering, did not put Empress Wang in her eyes, and even often squeezed and bullied Empress Wang. Although Empress Wang was the empress, she had no children, was not favored by Emperor Gozong, and was often squeezed and bullied by Consort Shaoshu. She was very depressed and anxious. She knew that if she continued like this, she would sooner or later be replaced by Consort Shaoshu and lose her empress position. So she began to find a way to suppress Consort Shaoshu, regain Emperor Gozong's favor, and consolidate her empress position. At this time, Empress Wang learned about the feelings between Emperor Gozong and wuzetian. She knew that Emperor Gozong loved wuzetian deeply and missed her all the time. So Empress Wang had an idea. If she could help Emperor Gozong take wuzetian out of Ganya Temple and take her back to the palace, wuzetian would definitely be grateful to her, help her suppress Consort Shaoshu, and consolidate her empress position. Moreover, wuzetian had just come out of the temple, had no background or reliance, and could only rely on herself, which would not pose a great threat to her empress position. So Empress Wang began to secretly help Emperor Gozong, give him advice, and find a way to take wuzetian back to the palace. First, she secretly sent people to Ganya Temple to send clothes and money to wuzetian, comfort her, and tell her that Emperor Gozong had not forgotten her and was trying to take her back to the palace. Then she spoke well of wuzetian in front of Emperor Gozong many times, persuading him to take wuzetian back to the palace. Emperor Gozong had always wanted to take wuzetian back to the palace, but he had not taken action because of the opposition of the court ministers. Now, with the support and help of Empress Wang, Emperor Gozong finally made up his mind to take Wuzetian back to the palace. He knew that with Empress Wang's support, there would be fewer oppositions from the court ministers and less pressure on himself. In the first year of Yonghui, 650 AD, Emperor Gozong Liji personally went to Ganya Temple to worship Emperor Taizong on the occasion of the first anniversary of Emperor Taizong Lishimin's death. At Ganya Temple, Emperor Gozong finally saw Wuzetian, whom he missed day and night again. At this time, Wuzetian was already 27 years old. Although she had spent a year of cold time in Ganya Temple, her appearance was still beautiful. Her temperament was still unique, but between her eyebrows, there was a little more vicissitudes and loneliness. When they met, they were filled with mixed emotions and couldn't help crying in each other's arms. Wuzetian knelt in front of Emperor Gozong, crying about her loneliness in Ganya Temple and her longing for Emperor Gozong. Emperor Gozong held Wuzetian, feeling very distressed. He said firmly to Wuzetian, "Mingyang, I'm sorry for making you suffer. Don't worry, this time I will never let you leave me again. I will definitely find a way to take you back to the palace, take good care of you, and never let you be wronged again." After the worship, Emperor Gozong began to prepare to take Wuzetian back to the palace. First, he discussed with Empress Wang and formulated a careful plan. Then, he secretly won over some ministers who supported him in the court to build momentum for himself. Finally, ignoring the opposition of veterans such as Zhang Songwuji and Chu Suiyang, he issued an imperial edict to take Wuzetian out of Ganya Temple, take her back to the palace, and confer her the title of second-rank Joy. Wuzetian finally left the cold Ganya Temple, returned to the palace she had missed for a long time, and returned to Li Ji, whom she loved deeply. That year, she was 27 years old. From entering the palace at the age of 12 to returning to the palace again at the age of 27, in 15 years, Wuzetian experienced too many hardships and tribulations, too much loneliness and solitude, but she never gave up her dream and always endured and waited. Now, she finally returned to the palace and had the opportunity to continue pursuing her power and dream. After returning to the palace again, wuzetian became more mature, cautious, and resourceful. She knew that it was not easy for her to return to the palace. She must cherish this opportunity, act cautiously, and carefully handle the relationship with various forces. First of all, she showed extreme gratitude and respect to Empress Wang. She went to visit Empress Wang every day, served her, and obeyed Empress Wang's wishes without hesitation. She did this not only to repay Empress Wang for her help, but also to paralyze Empress Wang, making her think that she was just a weak woman without ambition who could only rely on her and would not pose any threat to her empress position. Seeing that wuzetian was so grateful and respectful to herself, Empress Wang was very happy and relieved. She thought that she had not misjudged the person. Wuzetian was indeed a pawn that could be used. She could use Wuzetian's power to suppress Consort Shaoshu and consolidate her empress position. So Empress Wang often spoke well of wuzetian in front of Emperor Gozong, persuading him to summon wuzetian more often and favor her more. Emperor Gozong had always loved wuzetian deeply. Now, with the support and persuasion of Empress Wang, he favored wuzetian even more. He often summoned wuzetian to compose poems and couplets with her, discuss literature and history, and even sometimes discuss state affairs with her. With her talent and insight, as well as her gentleness and thoughtfulness, wuzetian soon completely captured Emperor Gozong's heart, becoming the most favored concubine of Emperor Gozong, whose status even surpassed that of Consort Shaoshu. Seeing that wuzetian was deeply favored by Emperor Gozong after returning to the palace, Consort Shaoshu was very jealous and angry. She was unwilling to lose Emperor Gozong's favor and be surpassed by wuzetian. So she began to squeeze and suppress wuzetian everywhere, often speaking ill of wuzetian in front of Emperor Gozong, framing her and trying to drive Wuzetian out of the palace again. But Wuzetian was no longer the simple and weak Karen she used to be. She had experienced too many hardships and tribulations and had become very resourceful and skillful. Faced with consort Sho's squeeze and suppression, Wuzetian did not choose to confront head-on, but chose to endure and retreat. She buried all her grievances and anger in her heart, silently collecting consort Shu's handles, waiting for the right time to give consort Shu a fatal blow. At the same time, Wuzetian was secretly cultivating her own power. Taking advantage of Emperor Gozong's favor for her, she recommended some people she trusted to Emperor Gozong, letting them enter the officialdom and hold official positions. Most of these people were born in humble families without background. Because they were recommended by Wuzetian, they could enter the officialdom and gain power and status. So they were very grateful to Wuzetian and were willing to follow her faithfully, becoming her right-hand man. In addition, Wuzetian also paid great attention to winning over the maids and eunuchs in the palace. She often sent clothes and money to the maids and eunuchs, cared about their lives, listened to their troubles, and was very lenient and kind to them. Most of the maids and eunuchs were born in poverty, had low status in the palace, and were often bullied and oppressed. They rarely received others' care and respect. Wuzetian's leniency and kindness to them moved them deeply. They were all willing to follow Wuzetian faithfully, serve her, become her eyes and ears in the palace, pass messages for her, and monitor every move in the palace. In the second year of Yonghui, 651 AD, Wuzetian gave birth to a son for Emperor Gozong, named Li Hong. Li Hong's birth made Emperor Gozong very happy and made Wuzetian's position more stable. In that era where a mother's status was determined by her son, giving birth to a son meant that Wuzetian had more capital, more right to speak, and her position in the harem would never be easily shaken. Li Hong's birth also made Empress Wang feel a trace of crisis. She knew that Wuzetian was now deeply favored by Emperor Gozong and had given birth to a son, and her status was becoming more and more stable. If this continued, she would sooner or later threaten her empress position. So Empress Wang began to regret helping wuzetian take her back to the palace. But at this time, it was too late to regret. wuzetian had already established herself in the palace and had certain power. It was impossible for Empress Wang to drive wuzetian out of the palace again. Seeing that wuzetian had given birth to a son and her status was becoming more and more stable, Consort Shu's jealousy and anger became stronger and stronger. She knew that if she did not find a way to suppress wuzetian, she would sooner or later be completely replaced by wuzetian. So she began to unite with some maids and eunuchs who opposed wuzetian, trying to frame wuzetian and put her to death. But wuzetian was already prepared. Her eyes and ears were all over the palace, and every move of Consort Shu was under her monitoring. Consort Shu's framing not only did not hurt wuzetian, but also was seized by wuzetian, who in turn framed Consort Shu. After learning that Consort Shu had framed wuzetian, Emperor Gozong was very angry. He had already been dissatisfied with Consort Shu's arrogance and domineering, and now he loved wuzetian deeply. Now that Consort Shu dared to frame wuzetian, Emperor Gozong could no longer bear it. So he issued an imperial edict to put Consort Shu into the cold palace, abolish her concubine status, and no longer summon her. After Consort Shu was put into the cold palace, wuzetian did not stop there. She knew that Consort Shu had an arrogant and ruthless personality. As long as she was alive, she would always be a threat to herself and might make a comeback. So wuzetian secretly sent people to the cold palace to cruelly kill Consort Shu. In this way, wuzetian completely eliminated her biggest competitor Consort Shu, and there was no one in the harem who could compete with her. After eliminating Consort Shu, wuzetian's next target was Empress Wang. Although Empress Wang was the empress, she had no children, was not favored by Emperor Gozong, and her power was very weak, which was no match for wuzetian at all. But Empress Wang was born into a prominent family, supported by powerful family forces behind her, and she also had the support of court veterans such as Zhang Songwuji and Chu Suiyang. It was not an easy thing to depose Empress Wang. Wu Zetian clearly knew that to depose Empress Wang, she must first weaken Empress Wang's family forces, first attack court veterans such as Zhang Songwuji and Chu Suiyang, gain the support of court ministers, and then find a suitable reason to persuade Emperor Gozong to depose Empress Wang and make herself the empress. So Wu Zetian began to implement her plan step by step. First of all, Wu Zetian secretly collected the handles of Empress Wang, her family members, and court veterans such as Zhang Songwuji and Chu Suiyang. Using her eyes and ears in the palace and the forces she cultivated, she closely monitored every move of Empress Wang and the court veterans. As long as they made any mistakes or had any handles, they would be collected by Wu Zetian one by one. Secondly, Wu Zetian secretly won over some ministers in the court to build momentum for herself. She knew that court veterans such as Zhang Songwuji and Chu Suiyang were mostly conservatives. They strictly abided by the ancestral system and firmly opposed deposing Empress Wang and making herself the empress. But in the court, there were also some ministers who were born in humble families without background and wanted to gain power and status by relying on Wu Zetian. There were also some ministers who had long-standing conflicts with veterans such as Zhang Songwuji and Chu Suiyang, and wanted to use Wu Zetian's power to attack them. Wu Zetian won over these ministers to her side one by one, making them her supporters. Among them, the most supportive of Wu Zetian were Li Yifu and Su Jingzong. Li Yifu was born in a humble family, talented but cunning and good at opportunism. He once offended Zhang Songwuji and was demoted to Sima of Bishou by Zhang Songwuji. Li Yifu resented Zhang Songwuji deeply and wanted to take revenge on him. At this time, he learned that wuzetian wanted to depose Empress Wang and make herself the empress, and that wuzetian was winning over court ministers to build momentum for herself. So Li Yifu took the initiative to defect to wuzetian, expressed his loyalty to her, and was willing to help her achieve her goal. wuzetian was very happy, so she used her influence to recommend Li Yifu to Emperor Gozong, letting him return to Changmen to serve as secretary of the Secretariat. After returning to Changmen, Li Yifu actively built momentum for wuzetian, submitting memorials to Emperor Gozong many times in the court, requesting him to depose Empress Wang.